My friends, welcome. Today I want to speak directly to your heart about something that has broken many good men, something that has left countless souls wondering where they went wrong. I'm talking about that moment when you see her eyes change, that moment when her messages get shorter, that moment when you feel her slipping away. I've walked this path. I've made these mistakes. I've felt that gut-wrenching pain when someone you care deeply about begins to drift away like morning fog lifting from a valley. And I'm here to tell you what you do in those critical moments will either save what you have or seal its fate forever. Before we dive in, I want you to understand something profound. Losing someone's interest isn't always the end. Sometimes it's the beginning of something greater, but only if you respond with wisdom, not desperation. Today, I'm going to share with you the 5 things you must never do when a woman loses interest. These aren't just tips or tricks. These are life principles that have helped thousands of men regain their dignity, their power, and yes, sometimes even rekindle what was almost lost. These 5 mistakes are relationship killers. They're the silent assassins of connection. And I've seen good men, strong men, wise men fall into these traps over and over again. Why? Because when our hearts are on the line, we often act from a place of fear rather than strength. But not after today, not after what I'm about to share with you. Mistake. One, chasing and pursuing desperation. The first deadly mistake men make when they feel a woman pulling away is they begin to chase. They pursue. They become desperate. Let me paint this picture clearly for you. She's already walking away, and your response is to run after her, begging her to stay. Can you see how that only pushes her further away? When you feel her interest fading, something primal activates inside you. Your mind starts racing. I need to text her more. I need to call her. I need to show up where she is. I need to prove my love. My friends, this is the siren song that has led many good men to crash upon the rocks of rejection. I remember a time in my life when I felt someone I cared about deeply beginning to pull away. My first instinct was to hold on tighter. I called more, I texted more, I planned elaborate gestures, and with each desperate attempt to pull her back, I watched her slip further away. What I didn't understand then, what I need you to understand now, is that chasing creates pressure, and human beings naturally resist pressure. We're designed that way. When you chase someone who's already pulling away, you're not showing love, you're showing fear. You're not displaying confidence, you're displaying insecurity. Think about the natural world for a moment. In every species, who attracts? The one who chases desperately, or the one who stands confidently in their value? Deep in our DNA, we're programmed to value what retreats from us and devalue what throws itself at us. When you chase a woman who's losing interest, you communicate one clear message. I don't believe I'm worthy enough for you to choose me freely. And if you don't believe in your own worth, how can you expect her to? Instead of chasing, you must do something that feels counterintuitive but is infinitely more powerful. You must step back. You must give her the space to feel your absence. You must allow her to wonder about you. This isn't a game or a manipulation. This is creating the space for desire to breathe again. I'm not saying disappear completely or play mind games. I'm saying respect yourself enough to not chase someone who isn't reciprocating your energy. When you chase desperately, you lose dignity, and without dignity, there can be no genuine connection. The great paradox of human connection is this: sometimes, to pull someone closer, you must take a step back, not in anger, not in bitterness, but in self-respect and emotional maturity. Mistake 2, becoming emotionally reactive. The second fatal mistake is becoming emotionally reactive. When you sense her pulling away, your emotions can become a turbulent storm. Fear, anger, jealousy, desperation, they flood your mind, clouding your judgment and dictating your actions. I've seen strong men break down completely when they feel someone slipping away. I've seen them send long, emotional text messages. I've seen them make tearful phone calls. And I've seen them lash out in hurt and anger. And in every case, that emotional reactivity only accelerated the end. You might be thinking, but shouldn't I be honest about my feelings? Isn't that what authentic communication is about? Yes, authentic communication matters, but there's a crucial difference between communicating your feelings with clarity and purpose versus vomiting your emotional state all over someone who's already creating distance. When you become emotionally reactive, you place the burden of your emotional stability on someone who's already indicated they may not want that responsibility. You essentially say, "Look how much pain I'm in because of you, now fix it." This isn't connection, it's emotional handcuffing. I've been there. I've felt the burning desire to let someone know exactly how much pain their distance was causing me. I've drafted those long messages, my fingers trembling with emotion, but I learned through painful experience that emotional reactivity never builds bridges. It burns them. What's the alternative? Emotional sovereignty. This means owning your feelings rather than blaming them on someone else. It means processing your fear, your hurt, your anxiety within yourself or with a trusted friend or counselor, not with the person who's creating distance. When you maintain emotional sovereignty, you communicate strength. You show that while, yes, you care deeply, your emotional well-being isn't dependent on someone else's actions or choices. This paradoxically makes you more attractive, not less. Think about who you're drawn to in your own life. Is it the person who falls apart at every challenge, or is it the person who can acknowledge difficulty while maintaining their center? We're naturally drawn to emotional stability because it signals safety. Now, I'm not advocating for emotional suppression or suggesting you become cold and unfeeling. I'm talking about emotional regulation, the ability to feel deeply while choosing your responses wisely. When you sense her pulling away, take a deep breath. Feel whatever you're feeling, but don't let those feelings dictate your actions. Respond, don't react. Choose your words carefully. Speak from a place of self-respect, not fear. Mistake 3, trying to logically convince her. The third critical mistake men make is trying to use logic and reason to change a woman's feelings. This is perhaps one of the most common and least effective approaches I've witnessed. Picture this scenario. You sense her pulling away, so you sit her down and present a case for why the relationship should continue. You list all the good times, you enumerate your qualities, you make promises about the future. You believe if you can just find the right words, the perfect argument, she'll have an aha moment and the connection will reignite. My friends, I need you to understand a fundamental truth about human connection. Attraction and interest are not logical decisions. They're emotional experiences. You cannot reason someone into feeling something they don't. I've seen brilliant men, successful executives, skilled debaters, powerful communicators fail miserably when trying to convince a woman to maintain interest through logical appeals. Why? Because they're applying a solution from the wrong domain. It's like trying to fix a spiritual problem with financial tools. The instruments simply don't match the task. When a woman's interest fades, it's rarely because she's logically analyzed the relationship and found it wanting. It's because something in the emotional experience of being with you has changed. And you cannot address an emotional shift with logical arguments. I remember once crafting what I thought was the perfect message to someone who was pulling away. I thoughtfully listed all the reasons we made sense together. I highlighted our compatibility, our shared goals, our great memories. I was convinced my well-reasoned argument would change everything. It didn't even receive a response. What I didn't understand then was that feelings follow experiences, not arguments. If you want to shift someone's feelings toward you, you need to shift the experience of being with you, not present better arguments for why they should feel differently. When you try to convince someone logically to be interested in you, you also communicate something subtle but damaging, that their current feelings are wrong and need correction. This creates resistance rather than connection. Instead of trying to convince her logically, focus on creating new positive emotional experiences, if and when appropriate, not through grand gestures or desperate attempts, but through authentic connection when the opportunity naturally arises. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply accept her current feelings without judgment, without argument. There is remarkable strength in being able to say, I understand you're feeling differently now, and I respect that, and truly mean it. This acceptance paradoxically creates space for feelings to evolve naturally, without pressure or expectation. It demonstrates emotional maturity and security, qualities that are inherently attractive. Mistake. For sufficiency, your dignity and self-respect. The fourth devastating mistake is sacrificing your dignity and self-respect in an attempt to keep someone interested. This manifests in many forms: accepting poor treatment, tolerating disrespect, compromising your values, abandoning your boundaries, or placing her needs consistently above your own essential needs. When we sense someone pulling away, our fear of loss can override our sense of self-worth. We begin to accept behavior we would have never tolerated in the beginning. We start thinking, if I'm just patient enough, loving enough, forgiving enough, she'll come back fully. This is a dangerous path that leads not to love, but to resentment and even deeper loss. I've witnessed good men allow themselves to be treated as options rather than priorities. I've seen them accept last-minute cancellations repeatedly without comment. I've seen them tolerate being ignored for days only to respond with enthusiasm when finally acknowledged. I've seen them push aside their own legitimate needs to accommodate someone who's already showing them they're not a priority. My friends, hear me clearly. No connection worth having requires the sacrifice of your dignity. I know this road intimately. There was a time when I convinced myself that patience and understanding meant accepting behavior that actually dishonored the connection I thought we shared. I told myself I was being mature and giving space, when in reality, I was teaching someone that my time, my attention, and my heart were of little value. What I've learned through both personal experience and guiding others is this profound truth. How you allow yourself to be treated sets the standard for how you will be treated. When you sacrifice your dignity to keep someone, you may temporarily maintain their presence, but you permanently lose their respect. True connection, deep, meaningful, lasting connection, can only exist between people who value themselves and each other. It requires mutual respect, and respect cannot be begged for or negotiated. It must be commanded through how you honor yourself. This doesn't mean becoming harsh or creating unnecessary ultimatums. It simply means maintaining healthy boundaries. It means being willing to walk away from situations that diminish you. It means understanding that sometimes the most loving thing you can do, both for yourself and for the other person, is to refuse to participate in a dynamic that's become unhealthy. When you stand firmly in your self-respect, one of two things will happen. Either the dynamic will shift as the other person rises to meet the standard you've set, or the connection will dissolve, creating space for a healthier one to eventually take its place. Either outcome serves your highest good better than sacrificing your dignity ever could. Remember, you can't lose someone who truly values you by respecting yourself, but you can lose yourself trying to keep someone who doesn't. Mistake 5, stopping your life and growth. The fifth critical mistake men make when a woman loses interest is putting their own life and growth on pause. They stop pursuing their goals, neglect their friendships, abandon their hobbies, and essentially place their entire life on hold while they focus solely on recapturing what's slipping away. This is perhaps the most self-defeating response of all because it strips you of the very qualities that create magnetic attraction in the first place: passion, purpose, growth, and authentic engagement with life. I've seen men who were once vibrant and multidimensional become singular in their focus when they felt someone pulling away. Their conversations became only about the relationship. Their time was spent only strategizing how to win her back. Their energy was directed only toward analyzing what went wrong. In doing so, they inadvertently became less interesting, less inspired, and ultimately less attractive versions of themselves. My own journey taught me this lesson through painful experience. There was a period when I made someone else the center of my universe. When I felt that connection weakening, I doubled down, focusing even more intensely on them and neglecting all the other dimensions of my life. What happened? The distance grew. Why? Because I had unwittingly transformed from a complete multifaceted person into someone whose entire emotional landscape revolved around another person's approval. Here's the truth that transformed my understanding of connection. Attraction is not created by attention. It's created by engagement with life. When you're genuinely passionate about your purposes, when you're continuously growing and evolving, when you have meaningful connections with others, when you're dedicated to making an impact in your world, these qualities create a natural magnetism that cannot be manufactured through focus on another person. The great irony is that the more you make someone else the center of your life, the less center-worthy you become to them. But when you remain committed to your evolution and purpose, you naturally draw others toward your light. This doesn't mean becoming selfish or detached. It means maintaining a healthy relationship with your own life's journey, regardless of who chooses to walk alongside you at any given moment. When you sense someone pulling away, rather than abandoning your path to chase them, recommit to your growth with even greater dedication. Double down on your goals, deepen your friendships, expand your skills, pursue new experiences, contribute meaningfully to causes you care about. This response serves you in two powerful ways. First, it ensures that regardless of the outcome with this particular person, your life continues to flourish and expand. Second, it creates the space for her to witness you thriving independently, which often rekindles interest naturally and effortlessly. Remember, the most attractive quality you can embody is not devotion to another person, but dedication to your own authentic path and purpose. As we continue exploring this challenging territory, I want to reveal something that few people recognize when they are in the midst of feeling someone pull away. There is a hidden opportunity of enormous value contained within this painful experience. When someone's interest in us fades, it creates a particular kind of pain, a pain that can either break us down or break us open. And in that breaking open lies a doorway to profound personal evolution that might otherwise have remained closed. You see, when we're receiving consistent validation and approval from someone we value, we often don't feel the internal pressure to examine our patterns, confront our insecurities, or question our approach to connection. Things seem to be working, so why rock the boat? But when that validation is withdrawn, when we feel the sting of potential rejection, we're suddenly faced with questions we might have been avoiding. Who am I beyond this relationship? What patterns have I been bringing to my connections? What fears drive my responses when I feel someone pulling away? What parts of myself have I been abandoning to maintain approval? What would it look like to love from strength rather than fear? These questions, while uncomfortable, contain the seeds of tremendous growth. They invite us to examine the foundation upon which we've been building our connections and to consider whether that foundation is truly serving us. I can tell you from personal experience that some of my most significant periods of growth emerged directly from the pain of feeling someone pull away. In those moments, once I moved beyond the initial reactive patterns, I discovered aspects of myself that needed healing, strengths I hadn't fully owned, and capacities for connection I hadn't yet developed. One particular experience stands out in my memory. When I felt someone I deeply cared for creating distance, my initial response was textbook. I chased. I became emotional. I tried to logic my way back to her heart. I compromised my boundaries. I put my life on pause. None of it worked, of course. The distance only grew. But in the space created by her absence, once I stopped frantically trying to close the gap, I began asking deeper questions. I began exploring the insecurities that drove my desperate responses. I began examining the beliefs I held about my worthiness of love. I began confronting patterns I'd carried since childhood about needing to earn affection through performance. That period of reflection and growth, which would never have happened had the relationship continued on its comfortable but unconscious trajectory, transformed not just how I approached that particular connection, but how I approached all connections moving forward. It led me to develop a relationship with myself that was no longer dependent on external validation. It helped me discover a capacity for loving from abundance rather than scarcity. The hidden opportunity in someone's fading interest is the invitation to evolve beyond the person you've been, to heal aspects of yourself that might otherwise remain in shadow, and to develop a relationship with yourself that becomes the unshakable foundation for all other relationships in your life. This evolution doesn't happen automatically, of course. You must choose it. You must be willing to turn toward the discomfort rather than numbing it. You must be willing to ask the difficult questions and sit with the sometimes uncomfortable answers. You must be willing to see the situation not just as a painful loss, but as a powerful catalyst. When you approach fading interest with this perspective, something remarkable happens. Regardless of whether that particular connection reignites, you emerge from the experience more whole, more grounded, more authentic, and ultimately more capable of creating the depth of connection you truly desire. The journey continues beyond what we've been able to explore today. There are depths of understanding still to discover, practices still to master, aspects of yourself still to reclaim. But you now have a map for the territory. You know the pitfalls to avoid. You understand the alternative path forward. And most importantly, you recognize that what initially appears as painful loss can actually be the doorway to your most significant evolution, if you have the courage to walk through it with your heart open and your dignity intact. As our time together comes to a close, I want to leave you with this final thought. The greatest relationship you will ever develop is the one you cultivate with yourself. When that relationship is built on genuine self-acknowledge, unwavering self-respect, and authentic self-expression, all other relationships in your life transform accordingly. The journey we've begun together today is ultimately about becoming so deeply aligned with your authentic self that you no longer need to chase connection. You naturally attract it through the quality of your presence and the integrity of your being.